Awesome. So we will get started. Firstly, Jambo, Namaste, Konnichiwa, Bonjour, and greetings to all of you. Happy Friday. And as you see from the chat and what Farah has said, for some, it's already Saturday. So whatever day you're on, welcome. What an amazing day too at B-Sides Calgary. We're probably one of the last sessions before the end keynote. So thank you to the audience for joining us on our topic, getting your first job in cybersecurity. In terms of agenda, we're going to make this a little bit interactive as we have a fireside chat, and there is a prize for participation as we have Kahoot. So please stay on until the end. Selina, if you don't mind moving to the next slide. One of the prizes is a signed copy of my book, The Rise of the Cyberwomen, Volume 2. So let's get started with a bit of introduction on my side. And when we begin the fireside chat, that's when I'm going to get Farah and Selina to introduce themselves. My network knows me as a change maker. I am a change agent. I've dedicated my entire career to breaking down barriers and boundaries for underrepresented groups in STEM and in leadership. And I've done this through Stand Out to Lead, through She sharing her empowerment, and WeSys Western Canada affiliate. The impact has been phenomenal. I've seen great change that's taking place. And it's always rewarding when you see, someone's been placed into a position or into a role who's been trying to get into this industry. Now, only thing I'd like to add is, while change is taking place, we need everyone's involvement to accelerate change. So I was honored for my contribution in the cybersecurity industry by being named as one of the top 20 women in Canada, and this inspired me to share my journey in the book that I mentioned previously. So I'm an author, I love speaking engagements, but more importantly, I like challenging the status quo. I'm on the OS Vancouver board, and I was recently appointed as a board advisor at Observe ID, which is a leader in SIM. And I'm proud to share that both boards have a 50% gender representation on the board. Currently work for BugCrowd, and as you can see all the different pictures of the flags, I live and I've worked in 3 different continents. Outside of work, I enjoy cooking. You can see me making my roti, and I also ride my motorcycle. So that's a little bit about me. So some context in terms of what we're going to talk about is, if we look at what's happened, it's been 18 months since the world went to shut down. I remember my last trip was actually to Calgary on March 5th last year. And from my personal experience, I can tell you this has been a bumpy ride. I've seen so many individuals lose their jobs. And at the same time, I've seen new opportunities created as organizations are finding new ways to conduct their business. In 2019, according to some research, we needed an additional 4 million to fill the gap. Since the pandemic, that's changed. An article from InfoSec magazine showed that the cybersecurity skill shortage fell from 4.1 million down to 3.2 million. 56% of respondents said that their organizations are at risk due to cybersecurity staff shortages. And last year, the 3 of us, we shared our viewpoints as we believe there isn't a skill shortage. The cybersecurity industry needs you. We need a diverse talent to join us because we need an army to help us fight against the adversary. This year, I've seen so many individuals reach out to me on LinkedIn asking for help as they haven't been successful in getting an interview or landing a job in cybersecurity. And I've seen all sorts of reasons. These are some of the ones that I've highlighted, from technical skills to experience. And while this is frustrating, I can share with you that many of us have experienced this. And you'll get to hear from the panel on how they've overcome these barriers. So let's start off with introductions. And this is where I'm going to open up to the fireside's chat. First, let's start off with Selina. You're a local here in Vancouver. So perhaps if you can introduce yourself further.
Yeah, thanks, Aarti. So hi, everyone. I'm Selina. I am Canadian-born Chinese. So growing up, my family actually had a series of chain of restaurants. And unlike Aarti, I cannot cook. I just make the orders, and my parents, who are the chefs, cook for me. When I'm not in the world of InfoSec, I am doing activities. I love going outdoors, snowboarding. I have two dogs, actually. One is not featured right now, but what I really like to do also is kind of like Aarti, just contribute back to InfoSec. And one of the areas that's really near and dear to my heart is this program called She Leads Tech, or now rebranded to One in Tech, that falls under ISACA. So this group is really focused on bringing more women into technology leadership roles and focusing in cybersecurity. So I currently work as a technology team lead at Lululemon, where I am leading the security operations incident response team. And yes, working at Lululemon, I do a lot of yoga. Okay, so I'll pass it off to Farah.
Hey everyone, so I am Farah, and as I said before, I am from Mumbai in India, and I work as a team lead for security operations in Bug. When I'm not triaging bugs, I make videos for my YouTube channel and Instagram as well. And when I'm not doing that, I also do some bug bounty to keep myself technically active and learn new things, learn new bugs, and all of that. Also, funnily enough, have a degree in mass media because I wanted to be a journalist, but we will talk about that more in the chat. So I'm going to hand it over to Aarti now.
Fantastic. So, I mean, great backgrounds, and you've both not studied, certain courses. You both came from completely different backgrounds, and the courses you've studied, media and HR. So maybe let's start off with Selina. How did you get into cybersecurity? Walk me through your journey of how you entered into this industry.
Yeah, so I have a background, my education background is actually in business. So I graduated university with a degree in finance as well as HR. And, with the mentality that I was going to one day run my own business. And my last year at university, I got a job in HR for a local company here in Vancouver. And it was great. Like, I loved HR. It was very exciting at that time. But after working in HR for a period of time, I started to become really curious and got to work on a lot of other projects with our technology team at that time. And one of the teams that I was able to work with is cybersecurity. And it really piqued my interest in terms of all the things that they did and everything that they were working on, how to protect information, users, and all of the company's assets. So I started having conversations with people within IT, like, okay, what do you actually do, right? Like, it sounds great, but I want to know if it's something that I would actually be interested in doing long term. So I had spoken to our CISO at that time, and I had asked her, like, hey, what do I need to do? Like, I feel like I need to go back to school for this. I don't have any technology background. And her response to me was like, you know what, why don't you come and job shadow my team before you decide, because there's no point of you going back to school and then figuring out that you don't like it. So that's what I did. And I was fortunate enough to be able to job shadow the security team while working in HR. And I absolutely loved it. I had such a vast experience working in all areas. So it was security operations, like vulnerability management, risk awareness, compliance, all of it. And when an opportunity came up as a junior analyst in security, I took it, and I never looked back.
Wow, that's a fantastic. By the way, that's my dog barking, so you may hear him. He heard the doorbell ring. Fantastic background, and thanks for sharing your journey of how you got into cybersecurity. Farah, same thing for you. From media, what got you into cybersecurity? What interested you, and how did you get into that? My dog does not want to stop barking, but there we go. Go for it, Farah.
Okay, so as I said before, I was pursuing a degree in mass media. I wanted to be a journalist, but a year into my course, I felt like it was not right for me. and the education that I was receiving from my college, it didn't really match up to my expectations, and I ended up having a lot of free time on my hands. So I decided to explore a few other career options, and cybersecurity happened to be one of them. How I started was I basically did a small course from a training institute in India. It didn't give me any deep knowledge, but it did get me interested to look into it further myself. So I did that. I started learning, self learning from online resources. I went on to do 2 internships as well. My second internship came to an end when the pandemic hit, and that's when I started looking for a job. But it was getting really, really tough to find one. But I decided to do some bug bounties on the side to build my portfolio, also earn some cash along the way, because bug people who do bug bounty, they have a good portfolio, so they have something to show that, and recruiters might want to hire them for those skills. Uh, I also started posting about my bounties on social media, specifically on LinkedIn. And when I did that, I started receiving lots of questions from people who wanted to get into bug bounty too. So then I started a YouTube channel, and I thought I could hopefully give some insights into my journey to some fellow beginners in the space. And my YouTube channel ended up blowing up more than I expected. In fact, my first video has more than 100K views, which was totally not expected at all, from at least from my side. And the exposure that I got from all of that, it really helped me grow, and it also helped me get my current job as an ASE. I will explain that a little more later in the further questions.
That's fabulous. And definitely, I've got a lot more questions from what you've just shared. Thanks for sharing your background. And as I mentioned earlier on, I'm hearing a lot of individuals talk about some of the barriers to entry, one of them being skills, like technical skills. And it sounds easy from when I'm hearing you both are in this industry, but I'd like to hear from your viewpoints. What was the biggest challenge getting into this field?
Yeah, for me, it was no educational background and no experience. Um, and that was really challenging. So when I taken the junior role, it was a lot of on the job learning, and learning a lot of it felt like I was drinking from a fire hose, like constantly every single day. And it was very difficult to overcome because I had to not only learn it, but also like implement it. And there was so many days within, I would say, my first year working on the job, just constantly learning, like working for, 8 hours, and then afterward learning and reading. But, having not had any education or experience in that, and really forcing myself and being passionate about it and dedicating my time to it, that's really how I overcame those barriers. And I was able to prove that, like, yeah, I do deserve to be in this role. And I kept on showing up, and that was the biggest thing, like kept on accepting those challenges, willing to learn. And then that's really what I think a lot of employers look for.
Fantastic. Farah, how about yourself?
So I think my barrier was kind of similar, because I did not have a formal education in cybersecurity or anything related to STEM or tech. Um, so for me, what I did was I needed a different way to show my skills and to prove myself. So for me, posting on social media, posting and really putting in work to build my brand on YouTube, that is what worked for me, because that showed my future employer that I have skills that they're looking for in their job. And when they watch my videos, they can see that for themselves, right? I think it's a much better way to get to know someone, uh, as compared to like just seeing their resume or maybe an interview. So for sure, I think something like putting in work to build a brand and showcase yourself and your skills to so many people at the same time really helps in overcoming those barriers of educational and experience requirements.
You actually bring a really good topic there when you talk about skills. And if we look at it, just another comment there, the adversary doesn't have any barriers, right? Of course, they've got like an army, maybe not, maybe they do, but there's no barrier there. But yet I hear a lot of barriers, and you bring a really good point on skills. And particularly around soft skills, I want to concentrate a little bit more on that. What I see soft skills are like life skills, right? And the importance of leveraging the skills or the soft skills into your day-to-day roles. So let's start off with Selina. I'd like to learn a little bit more from you, as Farah had mentioned a little bit about skills. What did your soft skills enable you to make a career transition? How did your soft skills enable you to make a career transition?
Yeah, I think a big portion of why I was able to be successful in security was those skills that I did bring over from HR, actually. So I think the three biggest ones that I can think of are, communication, adaptability, and curiosity. With communication, it's you have to be able to relay what you need, right? And as a security professionals, we we think we can do it all, but we can't do it all. There's just too much, right? And you need allies. You need, security champions. And that's a term that's been thrown around quite a bit. But like in the organizations that I have worked at, you need to not only educate people, but get them on board with security. And to be able to do that, you need to communicate what those risks are. And that skill for me was really big because not coming from a technology background, I was able to really explain like, okay, these are the risks that are impacting the business in a way that they can understand, because I wasn't very technical, and get them on board to say, yeah, okay, we want to come along with you in this security journey so that we can protect ourselves and like our business area while we're still, generating revenue. The second one, being adaptability, is just being flexible, being willing to learn, being willing to take feedback. Never get like too set in your ways in terms of like your thinking, because as we all know, things shift so quickly in this field, and we need to be able to just figure out what's the next best solution and move on and continuously improve. So for me, that was very much like, okay, taking the feedback, how can we be better, and moving along as a team. So being adaptable. And then the last one is just being curious, like always asking questions. Again, like this field is changing so much, you're constantly learning. And, there was a question actually about imposter syndrome. Like, yes, I constantly have imposter syndrome. But how I get over that is like, I'll just ask more questions about like, and find out what topics that I don't actually know that I'm tackling, so that, like that imposter syndrome comes down, because I do have a little bit more knowledge. And if I don't, I'll hone in the InfoSec group or other people that are more knowledgeable. So being curious is so important in our field.
Yes, that's a great segue, and thanks for bringing that out, because I was just going to bring the question from TJ about imposter syndrome, and if we have time, we'll bring that back up as well, on how we're handling it, or any other tips towards the end. Farah, you mentioned a little bit about your brand and your YouTube channel, which is phenomenal. Like, I know I was watching some of your videos because there were certain things that you had posted on LinkedIn, and I just really enjoyed watching your videos and found it very useful and very helpful, removing all the technical jargon and explaining some of these concepts. So you talked a little bit about how you got your job, and you talked a little bit about building your brand. So maybe let's start off with why. I mean, yesterday I talked a little bit about the importance of building your brand, but for the audience who didn't attend the session yesterday, let's hear it directly from you, because I did feature you and Selina yesterday's talk. Why do you need a personal brand?
So I think we already talked about the different kind of barriers that we faced, and the truth is that most recruitment processes, they place their focus on those educational degrees, then the experience and all those traditional requirements. But I feel like the whole infosec community is completely not traditional, and it's built on sharing resources. And if you actually speak to someone in security, or like if you speak to most people in security, you will find out that they did not start in security. You can see that right now with me and Selina. So I feel like building a personal brand and showcasing your skills on a wide platform, it allows you to bypass the traditional recruitment process in a way, because your brand becomes a way to directly display your knowledge, your skills, your passion for learning, your curiosity, and all of that to your potential employer. It does not bring in the barrier of quantifiable requirements. And if I hadn't built my brand, there wouldn't have been a way for me to show my potential employer my skills. I couldn't have just written down the list of books I had read and all the bugs that I had caught. So as I said before, my current employer, they hired me because of the content I created on YouTube, because that was a direct showcase of my skills. And when someone watched that, they wouldn't think about the years that I had worked or the degrees that I had earned. They would simply just gain value out of that. In fact, I was hired directly by my current boss, so I completely bypassed the recruiter and that process entirely. Because when they saw my channel, they felt that the skills that they were seeing, they were a perfect match for the job that they were hiring. So because of the personal brand, the value that I had created through my content, I had the privilege to bypass that process. And I mean, it goes without saying that when you do it, you also inspire a lot of others to do it. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely, totally agree, TJ, on your note as well about being authentic, right? 100% agree on that part. And just to add on a little bit, Farah, is thanks for sharing why and the importance of it and how you were able to leverage that. Now, there's several ways you can build your brand. One of them, which Farah has done, is through social media. So we're going to concentrate a little bit more on how Farah's done that. So maybe Farah, if you can, break it down a little bit, and how can you start? Just, if today I wanted to build my brand leveraging social media, how do you do it? How do you start it?
So I think social media is the easiest way to start your brand, because you can literally start from scratch. You don't need to come in with a bang and have a lot of materials or anything. You can just start with your phone. You don't need much to start. But I do have 5 pointers that you should keep in mind before you start building your brand on social media. The first thing is, it's very important to pick a platform to post your content. There are a few platforms that are popular in the infosec community, like LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. And you can also write a blog, but I highly recommend that you promote your blog using one of these social media platforms. And if you're comfortable being and speaking in front of the camera, then YouTube is a really good platform to showcase your skills. And if not, then you can also post regular updates of your work on Twitter and on LinkedIn. But whichever platform you choose, it's very important to be a passionate sharer on them, because your audience is going to keep coming back for your energy as much as they come back for the knowledge that you're sharing. And post about topics that you are actually interested in, and post consistently. For me personally, I started posting updates on LinkedIn just about a few Hall of Fames and when I got my first actual paid bounty, I posted about that. So a lot of people were inspired by my journey. They had a lot of questions. And when I created a YouTube channel, a lot of people from LinkedIn became a part of the YouTube community as well. So there are many platforms available, but you should pick the one that you feel is a good match for the type of content that you want to create. Next pointer that I want to talk about is what to post. So when it comes to figuring out your niche, I would suggest that in the beginning you don't post things that are too general, because that gets traction from beginners, but it won't help you be remembered by an employer, and that's who you are really trying to reach. So again, for me, I came from a non-technical background, and whenever I would read any technical blogs, my mind would feel super foggy, and I would get confused, and I would be like, there has to be a simpler way to understand this. So I started breaking down those concepts in my head to understand them myself. And when I started creating content, I basically did the same thing. And it turned out that people really appreciated my skills of being able to break down those concepts and explain it to them in a very digestible way. So in a way, that became my niche. The third thing that I want to bring up is connecting with your audience and being authentic. So the best part about Twitter and LinkedIn is you can connect with people in the industry. So even if someone else posts about their work, you can read it, give your feedback, and tell them what your takeaway was from it. And Twitter, I think, is the best. It's like a community. People don't only share their technical wins; they share their struggles, failures, and general life updates. So you should try to become a part of that community, but don't be spammy and provide genuine input to those people. I have also personally made friends through these social media platforms. Um, and of course, like, be yourself, and when you're creating content, think about what you bring to the table. What do you struggle with the most? What are some things you wish you knew? What do you feel is missing? Because a lot of people have the same struggles in the industry, and your blog or your video, your piece of content, that can really help someone, and that's when you will be remembered. So bring your different experiences and backgrounds, and like reflect that in your content as well. And the last point that I want to bring up is focus on progress and not perfection. So don't strive for perfection, because lots of people get caught up in posting the perfect tweet or perfect video, and they never actually end up putting it up. But your brand doesn't need to be perfect from day one. We all make mistakes. No one is born with the perfect skills. So my first YouTube video, in fact, was shot on an iPhone 6 in 2020. So if I had tried to wait for the perfect video quality and strive for that, then I would have probably not been here. So it's fine to go ahead and be your authentic self, and but also make sure to learn and improve along the way.
Thank you for sharing that. That is fantastic, sharing all those tips to the audience. And, just back, as you're hearing this from what Farah has been able to do, one constant theme that you hear is, tied back to your purpose and what are you doing, right? As you build your brand. Yesterday, I shared a little bit about tying that to your purpose and then your passion, right? As you can see, Farah's passion in media, and she's able to leverage that. But her main purpose is so that she can help the community. All right. So fantastic, and thanks for sharing that. And hopefully we'll see a lot more people leveraging some of the tips you've just shared today. So that actually takes us into the next question is, maybe we'll start off with Selina. What would you recommend to people looking for their first job in cybersecurity?
Yeah, so what I would really recommend that helped me was joining a professional program. So I joined ISACA Vancouver and ISACA Global. You can look for a local chapter in your area, but you're connected with so many great industry professionals, right, that can help and give you some guidance and, network with them. If there's opportunities, they post it there right away, right? So you'll see those opportunities. And another thing I would highly recommend, but I want to stress that I want to be very careful about how I word this, is to get a mentor. But getting a mentor does not mean asking your mentor for a job. Having a mentor helps you along your journey of, okay, what are some things, having somebody to essentially guide you through all of those processes, right? They've been there. They could be potentially hiring managers. They might know somebody in their network as well that they can recommend you to, things like that. But it's helpful because, if you don't know what you're doing right or wrong, they can provide that guidance for you. And I have had so many great mentors in my career that have helped me along my journey in security that it would have taken a lot longer to get to where I was if I didn't have them.
I like that comment that you mentioned. Many times I receive a note saying, "Hey, I'm looking for a job. Will you be my mentor?" And I'm like, I can't help you that way. What I can help you is help you see what you don't see in yourself. Eventually, it might or may not help you, but let's work on how I can help you. Because don't reach out to me because you want a job, right? Absolutely. So thanks for sharing that. And later on, if we do have time, we can talk a little bit about how you found your first mentor. So let's see how far we get as we've got time at the end. Farah, what about yourself? What would you recommend to people looking for their first job in cybersecurity?
I would suggest to build your network, whether it's through social media or if it's through joining groups, as Selina mentioned. But it's really important to have a network of good people around you. I think, again, Twitter is probably the easiest thing to start with. Just start being a part of the community, networking, giving your genuine input to people. Some people really appreciate that. And I would also like to mention to be authentic while doing that. As Aarti mentioned early in the presentation, we need diversity, we need different minds coming together. So just be yourself, and your unique perspective can really help someone and help you build your network and all of that. So those are my recommendations.
Absolutely. Yes, I totally agree. Building your network is so important. And there's several different ways that you can approach this. Even though we're all remote, and even though there's this conference, there's so many opportunities on how you can build your network. There's networking sideline, I guess, in the Hop-In platform. I see the networking component. Yesterday was so much fun, where I enabled, and I think, I don't know if there's a few who are on this, who have joined us, who joined me during that networking session. It was fun. Get to know different people, and build your network. Okay, so let's talk a little bit back to interview process. As you were joining cybersecurity, what was your experience in the interview process? Who would like to go first?
I can go first.
Awesome.
So it's always nerve-wracking, trying to get a job, especially for me, where I didn't have the experience, right? And, going from HR to security, even though I worked with the group, I still had to go through the interview process, right? So they had to see, like, okay, like, you out of everybody else. And I was nervous. I was like, okay, I had that, okay, I really want to do this, but I don't have any experience. What do I do? And that was actually very similar to when I had to interview for Lululemon as well, right? I was only a few years into my career, and there was still so much to learn. So both of those processes, I really vigorously prepared, right? But there are still so many questions that they asked me that I had no idea, right? And there was a lot of technical questions. So I prepared as much as I could, didn't know those questions. And I remember one question that my current manager had asked me was a very technical one, and I just blanked. I was like, I have no idea, but if you give me time, I know I can find out and give you the answer. So I didn't like try to BS my way and prove like, okay, like I maybe piece something together. I admitted what I knew and what I didn't know. And then I just said, I will work my hardest to find out for you. And after that interview, that was what he had actually said, that's why I actually hired you, because you showed me, like, you didn't try to lie to me. You told me straight up, but I know you would work hard to try to give me the answer.
I love that. Absolutely. Just being upfront and honest. I don't know the answer. A lot of times in the past, people fear that if they didn't, then that would, score them less as part of the interview process. But actually, reality is that honesty is a lot more important. Attitude. Thanks, DJ, for putting that in there as well. Is, just be upfront and just let them know, but let them know how you will find out the answer or what you're going to do about it since you don't know the answer. I've been in interviews whereby I didn't know the answer, but I will tell them, if not by the end of the interview, by tomorrow, I will get you the answer. Take their email address and send them an email and follow up, just so that they can see that you are taking action. Totally agree on that. Farah, anything you would like to add to that?
I think what, in my experience, when I started out, I did not completely know about all of the domains in security. I mainly knew about one, and when I would go, this happened with me initially when I went for one or two interviews. And because I came from that background, they would try to make me, like, they would try to portray it to me that they are going to teach me like this and that and this and that. But it's not important to be a master in every domain of security. It's just not possible. So pick one, and even if you know a little about the others, I think that's good enough. So I would suggest, if you're interviewing, if you're applying for jobs beforehand, you should know exactly what domain of infosec you want to get into, because even cybersecurity is a very vast domain and there are a lot of branches in it. So figure out what you want, and don't let someone try to make you undersell yourself. I think that's just what I want to say.
Fantastic. Absolutely agree on that. And that actually just leads us into the next question, which is rejection. As I mentioned earlier on in the talk, that I've had so many individuals reach out to me who are trying to join this cybersecurity industry, but have been rejected over and over again, whether, all the barriers we talked about before. And thanks for sharing how you've overcome some of those barriers that you had also experienced. But, we're not going to get every job we apply for. So how do you handle rejection? Who would like to go first? Fish for the windows. I love that, TJ. But go on, Farah. Or Selina.
So yeah, as I mentioned, so my second internship ended when it was peak pandemic and no one was really hiring, but I did apply and got rejected. But that's when I decided that I should do bug bounty. I should do something on the side that is something of my own, and that really, really, really helped me handle those rejections and kind of process them, because even though I was getting rejected, I knew that I had something. Even though it was something really small, it wasn't I wasn't making big bucks with bug bounty, at least until then, but I still knew I had something small and it was growing and I was improving, and I knew that. So that helped me retain my confidence in myself, and if I probably didn't have that, then I would lose my confidence by getting rejected. So yeah, that's how I handle rejection.
Mm-hmm. So, Selina, how about yourself?
Yeah, so rejection is hard, right? You take it very personal. But what I want to say is, you kind of have to detach yourself from that. It's not you, it's not the individual yourself, right? And that's where a mentor can really help. Like my mentors have helped me like figure out, what am I doing wrong in these interviews? Am I not like speaking highly enough about myself, showcasing my skills? And somebody actually mentioned role play, right? It's TJ, thank you. And they can really help you with that to build your confidence. The other thing I would recommend is, if you're constantly getting rejected, ask them if they'd be willing to give you some feedback, right? Like, what am I missing? What are you looking for? Are there any common themes across all these jobs that you're applying for that you're not getting? And then work on improving those skills. And as far as said, like if that's an area of security that you really want to go into, and that maybe there you're not necessarily meeting the requirements, next time when you apply for it, after researching, learning, and studying it, showcase that, right?
Absolutely. Feedback is important, right? I know for me, when I asked for feedback, when I didn't get an opportunity, in the end, that's how I found my mentor, because I asked for, not for the job, I asked for feedback on what I need to work on. Eventually, that individual became my mentor. And there was so much that I learned throughout the whole time as him being my mentor. Never have I asked him for a job, but it's just amazing what you can get from that feedback and what you can apply, into your next opportunity. So thanks for sharing that. Okay, and thanks. I think I can't remember who wrote in there. I'm trying to go back, but yes, it is a learning experience. And remember, an interview is both ways. While you're being interviewed, you are also interviewing the organization. You will know whether the organization is a right fit or not. So there's so many opportunities out there, but remember, there's certain things that don't align with your values, and that might not be a right fit. So as they're interviewing you, don't forget you should also be interviewing them as well. Okay, so I want to open it up to the audience. Any questions from the audience? Because I'd love to open this up. What do you like best about working here? Okay, I see what you mean. These are examples of questions to ask. Yes, great. Thanks, AJ, for sharing that. Questions for Farah or Selina? Anything? Q&A tab. If you just put it into the chat here, I can read it out from the chat here. Questions. I'd like to open it up. As you're writing questions, I know there was a question earlier on imposter syndrome. And I think I'm glad that a lot of people are talking about it, because this is something, if you asked me 2-3 years ago about imposter syndrome, I'd have been like, what's that, right? And then once someone explained that to me, I'm like, yeah, that's happened to me so often. So Farah, Selina, have you experienced imposter syndrome? I know, Selina, you talked a little bit about that. And how do you handle it? How do you overcome it? What have you done as a result?
Yeah, so I can talk about it some more. I constantly feel like I have imposter syndrome, you know, and being in this team lead role for me is very new. So when I got the role, I was like, "Are you sure you want me to do this?" And I was doubting myself, and it's hard because I think I also hang on to a little bit of like I didn't come from that technical background, and I'm constantly learning. But the more that I speak with people in this industry, the more I feel like it's so common across the board, that so many security professionals have it as well. Because again, like this field is so dynamic, right? It's impossible to just know everything and be an expert. Like the smartest people that I know in security, they'll never say, "Yeah, I'm an expert at something," even though like everyone else views them as experts, right? So I think we need to also just accept the fact that like we're not going to know everything, but just be willing to learn and engage and share content like what Farah is doing to get over that. So for myself, like I lean on my team a lot who are technical experts. And when I don't know something, I have to ask them, and I have to admit that I don't know, even though I might be in a position that I'm required to guide them. And just being authentic and being myself and saying like, you know what, again, like I will find out as much as I can. And that really helps me get past my imposter syndrome.
Thanks for sharing that. Farah, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think for me, I face imposter syndrome a lot too. I think it comes with creating content as well. Like when I see a certain number of people subscribing or following and watching my channel, I'm like, I start feeling like a fraud a little bit, because I'm like, why? Are you sure you like this? Are you sure I'm helping you? So it's kind of like that. But I think my way to deal with it is to remind myself again that it's okay to not know everything. And if I'm being honest about it, and if I'm saying that, yeah, I mean, I don't know everything, but I am willing to learn. And I think that's enough. That attitude is what will save you a little from imposter syndrome, because you kind of just accept that, yeah, it's okay. Cybersecurity is a very vast field. There's no possible way for you to be an expert in everything all the time. uh, but as long as you're not shutting yourself off from learning and claiming to be the expert, I think you're good.
Fantastic. Yes, totally agree on that part. I know for me, when I faced it, I totally can relate to how you both have said it. And for me, I bring it back to focusing on my purpose. And when I focus on my purpose, it starts removing that fear internally in me. Last question, and then we'll move to a Kahoot session. This question is from Patrick. Where is the question? I think it was from Patrick. Okay. Any advice for overcoming the idea of required experience for entry-level jobs? I often see entry-level jobs that say they require 3 to 5 years of experience. Number one, there's several of us in the industry who are being a voice as well. I know I've been a voice internally, and have, changed how how hiring managers are recruiting and breaking some of those barriers from this side. But maybe Farah or Selina, from your end, any advice or that you can offer up?
So when I was starting to apply for like my first jobs out of university, having no experience, I would have to show what kind of experience I had that was very similar to the requirements, right? And that's where I think it's so valuable what Farah was talking about like building your brand, building your content, showcasing that you know this stuff. You might not have had like paid experience doing it, but you've had dealings with it. You know, like the ins and outs of the topics that you need to work on and the tasks that are required for the job. So I think trying to show that like you've done similar things in the past to meet those requirements. And I think that's where you're going to say, yeah, like I might not have like formal paid work experience doing this, but as a student, I've worked on these projects that showcase that I have knowledge in this, and I volunteered with these groups to do this. I've brought different topics and did some speeches, taught other people. I think that's what's going to get you noticed.
Thanks, Selina. Farah, anything else you'd like to add?
I think I want to add to that of having something going on for yourself, and this will not only help you build that experience, but also in between, if you're looking for jobs. I know I did this when my internship ended and I was looking for a job. I didn't want that space to be blank, so I started doing bug bounty and I started creating videos so that I could show something. And even though it wasn't, as Selena said, paid experience or you weren't like employed as such, but you were still active and you were still learning and improving yourself. So I think if as long as you can show that, it still works.
Fantastic. Thank you both. We are running out of time. So what I'm going to do is pass this over to Selina, as we'd like to end on this note on a fun game with Kahoot. So I'm going to pass this over to Selina. But in the meantime, as she's setting this up, I hope you really enjoyed the Q&A session, the fireside chat that we've had with Farah and Selina.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Aarti. So we're going to do Kahoot. And for those who have not played Kahoot before, it's going to be a series of like trivia questions that we're going to post. So you need to use, I would recommend using another device. So maybe on your mobile phone, using this QR code, or you can go to kahoot.it. And this is going to be our game pin. So once you get there, you enter this game pin 6754012. Perfect. I love how somebody entered the game pin as their name.
Love it.
Yes.
I see like several people, 36 people already on this with us. So hopefully we can see a lot more names joining.
Perfect. Okay, and I do want to say that you want to pay attention not only to the device that you're on, but also to this main screen, because that's where the questions are going to be. Now, there's going to be like multiple choice questions. Yes, you can get the QR code back. There's going to be multiple questions, and there's going to be shapes associated with them. So you got to look on the main screen that I'm sharing right now, and then pick the shape on your device that matches the answer that you want to click. All right. Okay, so I think we'll give it another 30 seconds before we start. Okay.
Awesome. I love to see how many people are joining.
I want to start it, but I don't want to cut anybody off the registration. Okay, I'm going to start it now. Okay. Okay, first question. How many people would be needed to fill the cybersecurity skills shortage? Something that Aarti mentioned in the beginning.
And the numbers have changed since the last year, but I mentioned the one which was in 2019.
Okay. Okay, so the answer was 4 million. Okay. So we got Raj on our leaderboard. Okay, so who works at Bug Crowd? Should be a fairly easy one. TJ, if you see shapes on your device, you have to look on here as well, the main screen sharing. So the answer would be square, which is Aarti and Farah. All right. Oh, we have a new leader, Dan. Okay. Which of these is not a common barrier to entering cybersecurity? All right, there's not enough women in the field. Yes, we need more women in the field. Okay, PM, you're on fire. Okay, last question. What field was Selina working in before security? Four seconds left. HR, yes. HR and cybersecurity, they go hand in hand, no? Okay, so we got Dan in third place. Blue chip. And drum roll. TM, yay, congratulations. So you do win our prize, so please send us a private message of your contact details and we'll get that out to you. And yeah, thank you everyone so much for participating and joining us today. If you wanted to connect with us, please do so on LinkedIn. We're happy to continue networking outside of B-Sides, so you can find us there.
Patrick, I'm going to send you a quick note on the chat here with my email address. So if you can just quickly send me an email with your contact information. So you'll see a private message from me. You can send an email to me with your contact information. I'll ask you for shipping and then I'll get it going. With that being said, it is the end of our session. So first and foremost, thank you to Farah and Selina for sharing their tips, their experience, their journey. I hope you've all found this very valuable, the tips that they've shared. And hopefully this is something that you can apply if you're looking for joining the cybersecurity industry. But even the tips they've shared in general that we can all apply. Appreciate you, the audience, for your participation and hanging on with us as we're one of the final talks of B-Sides. So thank you to the audience for your participation, for your comments, also adding some additional insights and advice from the audience as well. Huge thank you to B-Sides for organizing an amazing conference and all the volunteers behind the scenes. I know this isn't easy, so amazing job to all the volunteers and the B-Sides team in Calgary for doing a fabulous job. With that, I guess, thank you. Asante sana.